Hello and welcome to the Bowser Press Co-op Podcast, Episode 6. Today we're going to be talking about Broken Age, the new game developed by Double Fine, the game that was kickstarted in 2012, and it was just released to the Kickstarter backers. It comes out to the general public, is it the 28th, I believe?
Sometime in the near future.
Yeah. So we were privy to play it first, and we've both completed the first act. And so we will be spoiling everything to do with the story and the gameplay. So if you've not played through it, then you might not want to listen. You might want to come back and listen after. Or, if you don't mind spoilers, then, listen on.
But before we go with spoilers, I guess we should say overall worth playing.
Just right away. Yeah, certainly. I think for me, it's worth playing for the $15 I backed it at. I don't know if $25 that they're asking. Are they going to be asking another $25 for the second act? Or is it if you pay the $25, you get everything?
I don't know. I don't know what the pricing scheme with it. It's gotten kind of weird with it. I paid my $15 and I'm getting both acts, so I'm fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a roughly 5 hour. Oh, excuse me. It's a roughly 5 hour experience. So, $22.50 it's on sale for right now as a pre-order, $25 when it comes out. I guess that's up to you. I'd say it's definitely worth checking out. I don't know, Steam sales being what they are, you might want to wait for a Steam sale. And again, if you do have to pay another $25 for the second act, then I feel like that's a pretty big asking price, especially when you consider I just got the entire season pass for the second season of The Walking Dead for $15. That feels like a better value proposition to me. So I guess it all just depends on how cheap you are. It's certainly a game worth playing, though. It just depends on how much you want to pay for it.
Yeah, game pricing metrics have always been kind of... We're getting to an interesting territory where things finally are at different values. It's just... I think people are still figuring out that, okay, this game is worth this much and is good at this much, but bad at the other amount.
Yeah, it's a delicate tightrope you have to walk to decide what the price of your game needs to be. Because, there are so many new models emerging, and there are so many different levels. Even within boxed games, there's some amount of, you can work within sort of the $60 upper range or go lower, and certainly with so much digital distribution, there's a lot of ways to price your game now. And I think a point-and-click adventure has a certain value. I feel like $25 is certainly the upper end at this point. So we'll see how people react to that and how that works out for them, considering they need to make some extra money on the post Kickstarter sales of it in order to fund it further.
Yeah, as far as adventure style games go, and pricing, that's one of the reasons I did dislike Gone Home was that I thought it was all right, that I felt like ripped off because I'd paid $20 for this really short experience, which wasn't really necessarily my cup of tea. I don't necessarily think it should have been as polarizing as it was, where it's either OMG best game ever or this crap.
Yeah. I guess a similar sort of situation might be Journey a couple of years ago, which for me personally, the $15 for that 2-hour game was perfectly worth it. I really enjoyed it quite a lot. I could see how some people would scoff at a 2-hour game being $15, but yeah, I suppose it comes down to if it's your cup of tea or not. Like you said, I happen to really take to Journey, and if it wasn't your thing and you'd spent the $15 on it, taking a chance on it, then I could see being a little upset about it. So yeah, it's as I said, it's kind of a delicate tightrope to decide what a game is worth. So sometimes you take a chance on something and you regret it. It happens. The worse things have happened than spending $10 to $20 on a video game and not particularly liking it.
Oh yeah, I know that there are worse things. It's just money is time, money is energy. So, anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
Back to Broken Age, spoiler territory.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I would recommend it. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I'd say I don't know you if you haven't necessarily played adventure games, I suggest checking out some of the more well-known ones like Monkey Island and whatnot before you go this, because this is good. It's just, it's not going to be like Gabriel Knight or Sam and Max. It's not quite to that level, but it's up there.
Yeah, and I will say I'm not a big point and click adventure guy. I played a little bit of like King's Quest back in the day, and I've played some of Monkey Island. I've played some Sam and Max. I've played some like lesser known weird little like shareware games. But yeah, my point and click adventure enculturation is very ill formed. But I was excited about the Kickstarter surrounding this, and I certainly didn't feel out of my depth or anything with it while playing it. But yeah, you're right. There's probably better games that you should play first if you're not much of a point and click adventure gamer, especially when you consider some of them can be had for like next to nothing
Yeah,
through either.
yeah. The money that Broken Age would cost if you haven't played point and clicks, I suggest go to Good Old Games and get Gabriel Knights 1 and 2 for, I think you can get them for about $12 now. So
Okay, yeah, so about half the price.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've never played those either. I understand they have quite the reputation.
Well, by many they're considered, especially Gabriel Knight 1 is considered the greatest adventure game of all time by a lot of people.
Well, okay, there you have it.
Yep.
Okay, so this game disregarding all other adventure games, taking this one as its own thing, we're gonna go ahead and discuss it. And I guess we'll start with the story, since that's an important element of point and click adventure games.
It's the main draw in my opinion, because it's one of the few areas, people are talking about narrative in games and that being important, a big deal, and that's always been the big focus as far as adventure games go.
Right. Before we were trying to do AAA blockbuster movie style games, there were point and click adventures that were doing story and doing it in interesting ways, sort of more on the margins. And this game kind of continues in that grand tradition, it seems. What do you think of the tone of it? Like, do you think it strikes a good sort of classic point and click adventure tone?
It's definitely trying to. I don't necessarily know if it's because of the art style. It's definitely trying to invoke childish type tones, and there were there were a couple moments and a couple things that had me like smiling. I was playing. I had mentioned to you before we started this little like hexagon things that are in the ship. They're like just maintaining everything.
Yeah, I like the use of the hexagon for the ship design, because what little understanding I have of like math and science, the hexagon shape is considered like one of the strongest shapes you can use to construct things. So it makes sense that like this, otherworldly, futuristic spaceship design would incorporate a lot of hexagons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying in terms of the child tone, because yeah, right away I started playing as the female character, and it very much has this setup of like a fairy tale. You're kind of a princess from a classic fairy tale, and in the fairy tale tradition, it starts off very lighthearted, but gets very dark very quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting that you did that, because I went with the boy to start with because, well, space.
Uh huh.
Gonna go to space. Space!
Yes, I thought about that. There's a moment in the game that reminded me of that. We can talk about it when we get there.
Yeah. But yeah, but also I think that if you finish the boy's story first, then because you get a lot revealed to you by going through the girl's story,
Mm-hmm.
whereas it's a bit more subtle on the boy's story, the basis of their involvement, of how the two
Yeah.
stories tied together.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, the way I did it, I started with the girl and sort of jumped over to the boy when I got stuck. I sort of used the ability to switch between them as a means of like ameliorating my annoyance or irritation with not being able to clear a puzzle. It didn't actually work out too well for me though, because I did end up getting kind of stumped a few times and had to walk away and come back.
Yeah, actually, the character switching thing reminds me of one of the games Tim worked on, which was Day of the Tentacle,
Mm.
which
Yeah,
had
they're.
oh, um,
Go ahead.
which had basically the way Day of the Tentacle worked was it was time travel. You had three different characters in three different time periods: the past, the present, and the way future, where tentacles rule the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the puzzles worked is that you'd zap between different characters and you could hand items off using using public urinals that were time machines to the varying characters, and so you could do something in the past and it would change things in the future.
Right. Yeah, Day of the Tentacle is another sort of big gap in my point and click adventure gaming enculturation. Um, my understanding is that game had the ability to solve puzzles in multiple varieties. You could sort of solve them with different solutions.
Well, yeah,
Is that
well,
right?
there being different multiple characters, it means that you had different sets of puzzles. So if you got stuck on one, you still had two other characters you could go to and play with
Right.
it, and maybe your brain would have thought and realized, oh, maybe I should try that.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So I guess this game does a similar thing. Yeah, where you can jump over and do another thing and focus on that instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I noticed right away with the boys' story was, as I said, with the girl, it's like a fairy tale sort of setup. Less so with this one. I mean, actually, what it reminded me of, last week I watched Pee Wee's Big Adventure for the first time in a long time. And in a similar sort of way, Pee Wee is this man child, and the boy in um, Broken Age is a man child as well, in that he's sort of coddled by his parents and he's given all these toys and things. But unlike Pee Wee, he has this like existential ennui about it, where he yearns for something more interesting and something meaningful in his life. So what happens is you have these scenarios that you go through. One of them is to go save these creatures from an avalanche, which ends up being an ice cream avalanche that you have to eat your way out of. And then there's a train that's like a runaway train, and it's a very simple solution, and it's basically just an excuse to put you on a roller coaster and have a good time. And then the other one is to go save some creatures in a spaceship that's about to explode or something like that. But it ends up just being like a cuddle party, and everyone comes and hugs you, and of course he's like a teenage character, and he's way too old for this sort of thing, and he's just kind of annoyed by it the whole time.
He's apathetic, and
Yeah, yeah, that's a better way of putting it. And actually, that's exactly how I felt playing through the scenarios, because it's like, okay, well, I see where this is going to go. So I guess in that way, the game definitely sort of nailed that tone and making even the player feel sort of apathetic about what they were doing, so that they might feel encouraged to find the solution to sort of get out of it and, find more meaningful gameplay throughout the game.
yeah, my thing with it is, after knowing that the ship you were in was the monster that was going around eating all the girls,
Hmm.
does that mean that like that's what his cereal come from? Because one of them's like Soylent, like a phrase on Soylent Green. I'm just going, wait, oh my god, this game actually might be dark as all hell.
Oh yeah. Well, as I said, my first inkling that the game was very dark was when I discovered that uh, the at the when you play the girls game, you're gearing up for what sounds like some sort of ball or prom or something, and your mother's making you a nice dress, and but what it is you're actually being groomed to be a potential sacrifice for this uh, monster that's called Mog Chothra. And so everyone in the town and everyone in the whole universe of the game, it appears, is they're all sort of passive, and they're all sort of pacifists. And rather than taking up arms against this monster, they simply just give in and offer up sacrifices of their teenage daughters for it to come and eat, to sort of placate it and keep it from
And some of
destroying
them,
their
and a lot of them
villages.
are really happy too. That's the funny part.
Right. It goes beyond simple, just trying to keep yourself alive through, extreme measures. They like take pleasure in it. It's like, this is the way it is, and we like it this way. Don't rock the boat. There's a definite theme there of sort of whistling past the graveyard and living in denial. And so you're the main character of the girl. Decides that she's not she doesn't like this standard, and she actually wants to fight the monster.
Yeah, the big theme of the game seems to be that that time in kids' life when it's like, wait a second, everything's messed up.
Yeah, it's very much
right.
that. Yeah, it's very much that sort of like teenage angsty moment of realizing what adult life is like, and realizing that coming to that realization that the universe is not fair, and things aren't as they seem.
Yeah.
And what you were taught as a child is not so black and white and simple.
Yeah. I think that's why, maybe that goes into why some people like want to get back to like a childlike state, or at least that seems to be an idealization for some people, because then you didn't have to worry about half the things you do now.
Right. Yeah, I felt like the themes of the game were pretty timely because, at least for me, I feel like the more time goes by, the more we learn about how awful our government is, how awful corporations are, and just how much the world kind of sucks. And I do feel like there is a lot of distraction in the world in terms of just like, instead of, riding roller coasters and eating ice cream avalanches, we might do other things like dull our minds with stupid reality television or something.
Yeah.
I'm being reductive, but that's kind of what the game is getting at, I think, in a sense.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious that the problem with what we have now is we only have Act 1, Act 2.
Right.
It's kind of going to be where it actually shows itself, because right now there's just hints of what's going on, and it's just like big reveal. They're both taking place in the same place, though. Leads me to a whole sorts of questions with like Shay's scenario, like, okay, why set this thing up as if it was a space-faring vessel when it's actually on the planet's surface?
Right.
And how are you flying through space then, and all this fun stuff?
Right. Well, I suppose it could be a cheat. Maybe Mog Chothra goes up into space and spends most of his time there, and then sort of comes down to the surface. But I guess we should back up and explain exactly how the game reveals itself. So basically, when you control the boy, you're on a spaceship, and what you learn later is that spaceship is actually the Mog Chothra beast that attacks the girl's village and other villages in the sort of her section of the game. And so when you play as the girl, your main mission is to discover a way to defeat the monster. And what you do is you discover a sort of death ray crystal in one of the villages that you come to, and use it to fight the monster. And once you take it out, then you discover that the boy character emerges from it, and that was the ship that he was on the whole time.
Yeah, and the way they play it from his perspective is that he's being attacked by some unknown force, and then...
Mm-hmm. Right, because so his half of the game is all about getting out of that loop of all the same 3 activities every day, and then discovering a sort of new game in a sense, even though it's supposed to be real. But it's basically just more another elaborate game, which is there are these creatures that are putting out distress signals, and this dude in a wolf costume on the ship tells you about it, and you
may not be the most trusting person. Call me crazy.
Right, so there's definitely... No. Yeah, there's definitely something going on there. There's a mysterious backstory to that character. We don't really understand. Like, we follow his orders, but yeah, we don't know whether or not we should trust him. So we kind of do some subtle subterfuge on the ship and finagle a way to go against the wishes of your mother to do the same thing every day and follow his orders instead. And then in the process, you end up sort of crashing the ship, or rather getting it attacked, which ends up being the attacks from the female character on the other half of the game.
Yeah, I was with being mother. I was just like going, are there going to be xenomorph jokes?
Yeah. Well, there is that moment when you go out onto the hull of the ship to attack the unknown, like the foreign body or whatever, and it felt very much like a Alien homage to me because you actually click on the foreign body, and he's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't stick my head right into this, but that's what I'm gonna do. And then, like, of course, it opens up and spits this thing on you, which ends up just being a present because it was just put there by your mother anyway.
Yeah, grabbing Gary.
Right. So yeah, that to me felt like a real, if not a jab at Alien, it almost felt like a jab at Prometheus and sort of like the really stupid things that the characters do in that movie.
Yeah.
But this game was made around the same time that came out, so I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, well, no, there's a couple little things here and there. Like, if you don't have an air, like when you're in space and you cut the cord, if you don't have a thing, it's like, it's like suffocating in the vacuum of space, worth it.
Yeah, for a moment there, I was wondering, like, am I gonna die in this situation? Is this game gonna have those deaths that, like, from what I understand, the Ron Gilbert and Tim Schafer school of point-and-click design sort of...
No,
they don't do that kind of thing?
No, they never did. LucasArts Adventures, like, you could only die one way at Monkey Island, and it took 10 minutes. It took 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. 'Cause I think it was just them making fun of Sierra.
Right.
Because Sierra adventure games were, oh, you're curious about this? Oh, you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. Which, it's strange because it's like, why make a game that way considering it's built upon clicking on things and combining items and experimenting, and yeah, you're sort of punished for doing that in those games.
I think it was to sell strategy guides because there was a lot of things in the older Sierra ones that were like, they as people always put, the moon logic. Mm-hmm. You combine. I remember Longest Journey, one really kind of absurd puzzle was that you would like throw down breadcrumbs onto this little thing that was on the car window, so a seagull would come over and then pop the blown up thing so it would like release something else.
Wow.
Or just finding items like like Longest Journey, like there was a subway you could take and there was actually like this fork that was on the track. But you wouldn't necessarily think to try clicking over there because, electrified third rail and all that fun crap.
Yeah, so, okay, this is probably a good segue to talk about the puzzle design in Broken Age. What did you think about the leaps of logic or lack of leaps of logic, maybe the more logical solutions in this game?
Well, I thought a lot of them did fit the tone because the tone was more cartoony, so it's not like it has firm reality grounding to it.
Yeah, I think a good example is when you go to the city that's in the clouds, and everything's all about being light and distributing weight. You discover that you need these special shoes in order to walk on the clouds without sinking, and you end up getting a pair that's too large for you, and you need to get a pair that actually fits you, and then you also come across a ladder that ends up sinking because the bottom of the ladder is very, and they set it all up earlier. They talk about like chopsticks going through whipped cream and stuff like that. They give you imagery to make you think about things that are thin and sharp being very easy to go through the clouds, and then make you think about things that are flat and have a large surface area to be things that would not go through the clouds. So it's like, okay, well, I get it. Put those large shoes on the bottom of this ladder. And even combining items in the game is very easy to do. You just click on one item, drag it over to the other item, let go of the mouse button. If they're combinable, bam, they combine. And if they don't combine, then there's so much voiceover in this game that it serves a function of being kind of funny and lighthearted, and B, it lets you know that, hey, you can't really combine those.
Yeah. Going with it, at least when it came to the ladder, they did have the hooks on the end of it, so the whole thing with it was that there was the bird that wouldn't let you put the hooks into the nest.
Right. Yeah, so you think you need to attach the hooks onto this nest in order to get up there, but the bird won't let you do it, so it's like, okay, well, I got to do something else, and as I said, it's logical. It made sense to me. Okay, put the shoes on the bottom of the ladder, and the game lets you do it. I think that was my favorite example of like a really logical, fun solution to a puzzle in the game. I guess my least favorite was when you're actually fighting Mog Chothra at the end, and you discover that shooting the body of the beast does not hurt it, and it has these like long. Mog Chothra is kind of like this. It almost looks like Mother Brain or something. It's just like this huge, bumpy mass of like eyeballs and stuff in like a brain sort of shape, and then it has these like tentacles that hang down the bottom of it. And what you discover is shooting the mass of the body doesn't hurt it, but shooting the tentacles is what you need to do. And you shoot all but one, and then the one comes and grabs you, because previously, if it grabbed you, it grabbed you with two of them, and it made it so that you didn't have any arms free and you couldn't do anything. So when it comes and grabs you with just the one arm, you have an arm free, and you can use an item all of a sudden. So for me, in that moment, I kept thinking, because the game makes it clear that you need to get the mouth of it open so that you can shoot the laser into its mouth. I had this peach in my inventory, which I had, fair enough, used in a puzzle earlier in the game, but because you can see water dripping out of the corner of the thing's mouth, and I kept thinking, if I show it the peach, it'll want to eat the peach and it'll open its mouth, and it wouldn't work, and that's all I could think. So I eventually just started clicking on items at random, and eventually the ladder was the thing you needed to like pry the thing's mouth open, which, makes some sense, but it was arrived at totally randomly through trial and error, at least for me.
Yeah, well, there isn't really any kind of hint. I just kind of threw the ladder because, like, okay, I need to pry the thing's mouth open.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, like,
there's no guarantee everyone's going to think that right away.
No. So, I mean, you've played more point-and-click adventures than me, certainly ones that have some of the more infamous, bizarre puzzle designs that don't make any logical sense. Overall, how do you think this stacks up, and did you actually have any problems with any of them that you can think of?
The issue I had was not necessarily like what item to use for the most part. The issue was figuring out that I could get some of the items. Like, for instance, the fruit trees. I didn't go to the left initially.
Yeah.
Because there's that whole branch that's just to the side, like way to the side.
Yeah, that took me a while too. I kept shaking the branch and thinking.
And the kid's helmet he had from before.
Oh, yes.
Because what I thought was going on was that, okay, I'll shrink my head all the way, and then it will finally give me a helmet, because I thought I had too big of a head for it. Just turns out, oh no, you need to shrink your head, and then it will. Then you can put on the kid's helmet.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I played around with that a bunch. At one point, yeah, I thought about it logically. I'm like, okay, because what you're describing is when you're playing as the boy and you're on the ship, you use these teleporters that the first time you use them, the game makes it very clear to you that going through a teleporter one way shrinks your head, going back through it again puts your head back to normal size. So you discover that there's all these alternate routes that you can take, and you can go through all the teleporters in the ship without going through the return part of them, and you can shrink your head down three times its original size in that fashion. So I'm thinking, okay, like you did, that's what I need to do. I need to shrink my head all the way down, and then I can go finally put this suit on that allows you into this restricted area. But yeah, the game won't put the helmet on you because it doesn't fit you. And the problem I had is you have to go into another room and find your spacesuit that you had from when you were a kid, and it has a little tiny helmet that will ultimately fit your head once you get it shrunk down enough. But yeah, for me, it was combining those two things. I didn't realize you could pick that item up until like a lot of playing around and trying to figure out what to do. But once I found that suit, then it's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. And that's always been one thing with, and there's the term they tend to use for is pixel hunting.
Right.
Because, just with some games, like, oh yeah, another case of adventure game where I got lost and was kind of an important thing was there was a game called Enter the Dragon, which I think that's what it was called, or I forget.
Based on the Kung Fu film, or
I forget what it was. It was a Sega CD adventure game. It was a cyberpunk.
Okay.
Oh, Rise of the Dragon. That's what it was called.
Okay.
You're in a cyberpunk future. Anyways, the way some of the art was done, in just like the basic path, there was actually like an alternate path you could go, and you meet this old man who like gives you all these really useful things that you need to win the game. But I didn't know you could go up this alley because it just looked like the barren, empty alley, and I was just moving my cursor to go to this police station. So I was like, and the game was time based. Like it had a timer. You had 3 days to like complete everything.
That's tough.
Yeah. And so like I kept losing this game because I'm going like I just don't have what I need to finish this, and like I'm getting farther ahead. I just like. Yeah, eventually. And then realizing that, I was like, oh, wow, this would have been so handy if I knew I could go here earlier.
Yeah, I hate that feeling, when it's like you're just spending so much time hitting your head against the wall, and then you just happen upon this thing, and it just cures it all immediately. And it's just like, yeah, it's frustrating because you feel like you've just wasted so much time.
Oh, you feel like an idiot because, like, why didn't I notice that?
Yeah, exactly. It's not this eureka moment that makes you happy. Yeah, it makes you feel stupid. Yeah, the Broken Age is certainly not that menacing. It's pretty nice, and there's a couple little snags I hit, but for the most part, the puzzles are pretty logical. And you mentioned pixel hunting. There's no pixel hunting. I mean, everything is interactable. You put your cursor over it, and the cursor changes, and like a golden light surrounds it. It's very clear what you can and cannot interact with, and everything is pretty clear in terms of how to approach the situations. And
yeah,
I would say.
Yeah, actually, ironically, one game that did sort of have a solution to the whole pixel hunting was actually an interesting game. It had a neat story, though. It was one of Jane Jensen's more recent games, Gray Matter. They actually had a dedicated button you could hold down, and it would highlight everything that you could click on in the surrounding area.
Right. Yeah, that reminds me of that Gemini Rue game that I'm playing on iOS right now, where you can just tap your finger on the middle of the screen and hold it there for a couple seconds, and then everything that's interactable in the environment gets highlighted. So that sort of thing is very nice.
Yeah. I like them doing things like that just because, sometimes it's just, if you've done your art right, it looks like it's part of the background or foreground.
Right.
So why would I touch that?
Right. Yeah, you need to make things obvious sometimes. In terms of the UI with this game, what I loved about it was it was very easy to hit the spacebar and skip cutscenes if you needed to, or when you were going from one area to another.
Just quick travel, double click.
Yeah. You just double click and you skip the whole animation of them walking across the screen. So you could really, alleviate some of the annoyance of backtracking and whatnot with that in that fashion. Yeah, the game it's very streamlined. It has very modern sensibilities in that way. It doesn't like waste your time. It respects the player's time in a way that some old school games don't. So I enjoyed those sorts of touches in it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't think anyone will miss the cheap, unfair deaths that the older Sierra games have. If you just want to laugh sometime, look up the death compilations people have done online.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like the narrator, at least for King's Quest V, like seems to just take delight in your like death.
Mm-hmm.
like he always like makes a pun or something.
Is that the one where you play as the old woman?
No.
Oh, okay.
Five was where you play as the King Graham, the like
Yeah,
for the last time.
yeah. Okay, I do know that one too. Yeah, I've seen, I've actually played the fifth one. Now that I think about it, never finished it, but I believe it's the sixth one that I'm thinking of, where you play as the old woman, and it's kind of even more ridiculous.
No, that was 716. You're playing as
Oh,
Prince
okay,
Alexander.
okay, okay. Boy, I can't keep them all straight. That's
Yeah.
series is yeah.
No. King's Quest was even more evil. At least I remember six in particular was because basically there were puzzles that you could only solve if you had the manual on you.
Mm. Jeez,
Yeah.
what's the point? What's the point there?
I think it was to try to avoid piracy
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. That I guess that was an old tactic. Yeah.
because back then when you didn't have a lot of memory on diskettes, like they couldn't just copy and paste the text. All it was like that'd be a whole nother game disc.
Right. Yeah, but in terms of a point and click adventure, y- using a guide or a manual seems counterintuitive to the way the game ought to be played. I mean, if you just, I guess if you just want to see the story, then yeah,
Well,
you can just.
it's the way copy protection used to, or the way they
No,
wanted to make sure that you legitimately had it. It's that
I understand that stuff.
it.
I'm just talking in terms of like using a guide. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
no,
know.
it wasn't a guide. It was the actual like manual. Like you had to read the manual, and the manual had like
I
these
see.
riddles in it that related to the game.
I gotcha. Like on the back of Metal Gear Solid 1 or something, using the codec code to call Meryl for the first time or whatever.
Yeah, though I thought that was actually more clever. Though that was kind of a
Yeah.
dick move to people who rented the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard stories about Blockbuster having to put the code into the copy on the back of the rental box or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, but this was after people had already rented it and had problems. But yeah.
Now
So
everything's just in game.
yeah, exactly. But that's Kojima for you. He likes to do that fourth wall breaking stuff, so it's kind of fun. Um, so we've talked about the puzzle design. It sounds like we're both pretty happy with. It doesn't pull any dick moves for the most part or anything. Um, so what other points did you want to make about the game? I guess we didn't really talk about the voice acting too much.
uh, yeah, no, the voice acting's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
some people go like Elisha Wood's lifeless. Like, well, yeah, he's supposed to be like bored out of his mind. So
yeah. Frankly, I think he's very suited to that. I I feel like all his characters have a very flat tone to his line readings. I mean, I didn't see Maniac,
oh
but
yeah,
I
that's what I
don't.
was about to bring up. Like, if you want to see him like at the point where he scares the shit out of you, just watch Maniac.
Yeah, I can't see him in that role, but yeah,
Well, you don't really see him. That's
yeah. Well,
you
yeah, it's
hear
first
him.
person. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, he was fine. He was fine as the main character, or one of the two main characters. I was very surprised that the cult leader in the clouds was played by Jack Black. Like at first, I didn't realize it was him, and then I'm listening, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's Jack Black. He's just kind of dialed way down.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun.
I guess he just called in a lot of the voice actors he worked with before.
Yeah, yeah. He was the main guy in Brutal Legend after all, so it probably wasn't that hard to get him to agree to do a little bit part in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned you enjoyed the art. Did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, just briefly, I like the European design sensibilities.
Yeah. Um, what do you mean by that? Like fairy tale art or something, or
Uh,
what specifically does it remind you of?
I forget which specific artist. I know that they had
Hmm.
called down like this one guy that he was like really liked his art of, and they used that as the basis for how all the characters are styled. But it just it sort of does remind me of what's it those like the same like ultra simplicity that goes
Hmm.
into like those little like dolls. I forget what they're called at
Um,
the top of my head.
like nesting dolls, kind of like that stacking game they did before, or
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Where's
The sort of flatness of everything.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It does have kind of like a like pre-Renaissance European art look to it in that way. Um,
and it just has this very as I said like a toyish style to it.
mm, yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, I guess. Uh, yeah, yeah, definitely. With some modern touches, I guess. There's definitely like a a woodworking lumberjack character in there that clearly seems to be ribbing hipsters who go for this like hip lumberjack look nowadays.
Yeah, I actually thought it was more amusing that the trees were yelling at him.
Hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting touch. I did not see that coming.
I
And
actually that was one of my favorite parts. Was just the tree. It's like you murdering axe murdering sociopath.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if that's some sort of pro, like eco warrior sort of commentary or what, but
I
it
just
was,
think it was supposed to be funny. That's the entire reason it
yeah,
was done.
yeah, yeah. It was definitely amusing seeing the one tree vomit sap.
Yeah, after you show him the dead corpse, which has been mangled horribly.
Right, right. That is to say, his reworked three-legged stool that was made from a bit of driftwood.
Ah, poop jokes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, this game was definitely not above making poop jokes. About yeah, because it's like, what does he say? I'm not.
He
I
hasn't
never have
made
a
a
problem giving
stool
out
in
my
a
samples.
while. Yeah, he's not
Yeah,
afraid to
yeah,
give away samples.
yeah. So, did you sit through the entire backer list in the credits?
I tried to, then I hit a button accidentally, and it kind of started over again. I was like, no, I'm not gonna.
Oh, that reminds me. The point I wanted to make about I'm pretty sure I ran into a glitch in the game because the first time I switched over to the boy character, for whatever reason, when I switched back to the girl, it sent me back to the beginning of the game, and I had all the items that I had accumulated at that point in my inventory, and I was able to reclaim the knife that way because you give it to one of the shoemaker woman in the clouds, and I'm pretty sure you can't get it back. But I was able to finish the game with the knife. And it was interesting because trying to use the knife in situations in the game beyond that point actually does have voiceovers that are context specific. So I don't know if that was meant to happen, but it definitely felt like a glitch. I don't know that the game was designed to send you back to the beginning in that way. I
Mm,
don't know if you ran into anything like that.
maybe it was just that they had designed the game at certain points to have that, and they just kind of changed
Mm-hmm.
it around.
Yeah, yeah. Like I guess they probably just recorded all sorts of voiceover for stuff. But yeah, it was a weird moment. But I was able to just like kind of breeze by the beginning part of the game because I knew what to do anyway. And but yeah, I'm not really sure how that happened. I can only imagine it's because it's basically an unfinished game that they're releasing. So
Yeah,
there's
I
probably
had the characters' necks like go to the in front of their faces sometimes.
mm, interesting. Yeah. So yeah, like a lot of modern games, there's some bugs in there that they'll probably iron out with patches.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that does slightly annoy me, or at least with all this, is the fact that like it's getting released early in part, or at least the first act is in part because they blew through all their money,
Yeah,
even though they got like almost 20 times what they asked for initially.
right. Yeah. I mean, the backers are still getting the full game though, for no additional cost. So we can't be upset about it. Them being more ambitious than they set out to be. Maybe it's gonna hurt them. Maybe it's not. We'll see how much money they make on the post Kickstarter sale of this game on Steam and stuff. Oh, it is worth mentioning. It is coming to Ouya. Me being the Ouya proponent that I am, I have to mention that.
Oh yeah, how's that going? Does it have like a touch screen or?
The Ouya does have a touchpad, so I can only imagine though that they would put some sort of controller support in there and spruce up the UI for it and everything. Because I can't think of any games that natively use the touchpad on Ouya. It's just kind of there to be there for whatever reason. I assume the touch basically, from what can figure, the touchpad on the Ouya controller is primarily there for if you sideload APK files onto it and you're using just Android apps that aren't natively designed for the Ouya. That's basically how that touchpad comes in most handy. Yeah. So in terms of like actual games using it, I've not played one. So I'd imagine they're going to throw in like proper controller support for it. And it's cool that the Ouya is getting big point-and-click adventure releases on it. I mean, it got Walking Dead recently, and that stuff makes sense on there because the Ouya controller, I'm sure most people have heard, is pretty crappy. It's not responsive. It's not good for playing action games, but for point-and-click adventures, it's pretty perfect.
Yeah, well, it's like the D-pad on the Xbox 360.
Yeah. The D-pad on the Ouya may even be worse, to be honest.
Oh, that's saying something.
I don't know. It's bad. I'll say that.
Because I'm replaying through some PlayStation games, and it's annoying when there's the ones that don't have the analog support because it's that far back. It's like having used my Xbox controller, and I almost wish I had a compatible PS4 controller.
Yeah, I've never had a big problem with the D-pads on the PlayStation controllers. Of course, I'd say the best D-pad is either the NES or the SNES controller.
Yeah, definitely. But all right. So Broken Age is good.
Yeah, check it out. If you kickstarted it, definitely check it out. And if you didn't, like we said, use some discretion. But
I give it about an 8 out of 10. We have to do number scores.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not big on doing that myself, but I'm probably about in that territory. It's solid. It's a good experience. I don't know if it's $25 good. That's up to you. If you like this kind of thing, it's probably worth it for you. So, cool little game. I don't know that all of the hype surrounding it is going to do it any favors, but if nothing else, it'll give it the stature that it needs in order to raise the remaining funds, I suppose.
Yeah, it's nice that things like this can exist because these are kind of games that wouldn't exist without people actually being interested, because let's face it, there's not a lot of money in making them.
Well, maybe. I would argue that if you just do the scale correctly, I mean, not every point-and-click adventure needs to have millions of dollars sunk into it. And, there are plenty of point-and-click adventures out there done on the cheap by indie developers that you can play. Yeah. So, you want to do our sign-offs now?
Sure.
Yeah, so, we talked about Broken Age and the the first episode of the second season of Walking Dead.
The game, not the TV series.
Yes, the game. If you want to listen to prior episodes of our show, you can find them on Bowser Press on YouTube. You can find all the posts for the show with the show notes and everything on the Bowser Press Tumblr, bowserpress.tumblr.com. And you can email BowserPress at bowserpressed@gmail.com. And you can find Bowser Press on Facebook and on Twitter at BowserPressed, BowserPressed. And my name is Matt.
I am Isaac.
And you have been listening to the Bowser Press Co-op podcast, and thanks for listening. And join us next time.
Take care, all. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Well, like, for example, I don't think they spend that much on the Walking Dead games, but they're...
Well, I don't know what they spend on them, but those games are certainly very buggy. Like there's frame rate issues and there's just all sorts of wonkiness in those games every time I play them, and it's too bad because otherwise they look pretty good aesthetically. I like the sort of.
Well, I'm saying that they're really good experiences.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Bugs and all, it's worth it with those, but yeah, they feel like they could use a little more spit polish.
I guess I should go into it since we're on adventure games, season 2 of The Walking Dead. What have you done so far?
Okay, yeah, let's consider this like some bonus content then. Yeah, I played the first episode. Do you know when the second one's coming out?
Sometime in February, from what I
understand. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
So, it's a month or two between episodes.
Yeah, this is the first game from Telltale that I've actually paid for the subscription model. So, whereas in the past I would just buy the disc or rent it or whatever. So I'm not really all that used to what their release schedule is like. Is this pretty typical, like once every month or two for the new one to come out?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just itching to play the next one. Yeah, I thought the first episode was good. I mean, what I loved about the first game was the fact that it didn't hold any pull any punches. It felt very real and very I could feel the writers really working on making sure that the story fit the characters and that the story was grounded in a truly harsh reality, and thinking about those consequences. And the first game in the second season is just as good in that department. The story is doesn't feel contrived. I think all of the sort of moments in it felt right.
Yeah, it makes me wish that they were in charge of the TV series.
Yeah, yeah, and as I've told you, I've not seen the show just based on everyone telling me it's pretty mediocre at best.
Well, it's hit and
Um,
miss.
but yeah,
That's the Walking Dead
okay,
TV series, which is
yeah.
why I've stopped watching it because I.
But yeah, I will say in my playthrough, you're given a big choice at the end of the episode where you can either go and attempt to save one of the sort of elders of the community that you find yourself in who's being surrounded by zombies, or you can run and help out the younger guy. And basically, the situation I found myself in, I'm thinking, okay, if I run over there and help the older guy, he's dead anyway, because they show that he was bit earlier and he doesn't want to tell anyone yet. So for me, it was obvious. It's like I'm gonna go save the other guy who's not bitten, and then we're not gonna have to like put down eventually. And I guess that was something of a, I don't know.
Actually, ironically, they actually successfully both get away. That's actually one of my problems with some of the scenarios that they put in the first Walking Dead. Is really one of them is that the no matter who you chose, some of the choices they gave you, like set character was going to die either way.
Right, right. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I saved the younger guy, and it looks like going into the next episode, he's gonna like resent me for that and everything. And but like like I
I
said,
went for the older guy, and they
okay,
both get away. But it looks like he's going to
okay,
resent you anyways.
okay, okay, yeah, because I just assumed that because the older guy got bit, that's just like another liability. We're gonna have to worry about what's gonna happen with that later. So for me, it was just like, well, I don't really want to deal with that. Like that's just another X factor for things to go wrong later.
Actually, I thought it was more amusing that you can roundabout threaten one of the camp members because you find out her little secret that she doesn't want anyone else to know.
Refresh my memory. Is that the girl that's in the attic that they don't want you to talk to?
No, 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 not the girl in
Okay.
the act. The one that's
Okay.
pregnant, but the father's not the one they think.
Right. Right. That's right. So yeah, I think that she just sort of dropped that casually when I was talking to her. I don't think I had to like really get that out of her in my playthrough.
Well, no, when I hid in the bathroom, like she's
Mm.
comes in and
Okay.
what can you like fell the stealth segment like just get discovered earlier or
No, no, no. I'm just forgetting how I found that out, and I think it was the same way. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah, because you're exploring the house, and basically, when you come to this house, there's a sort of makeshift family, like it tends to be in the series, holed up in this house, and they are very sort of cagey and very unwilling to let you in. So they see that you have
Dog
a
bite.
cut. Yeah, you have a dog bite that you got earlier, and they assume that it's a zombie bite, so they lock you up in a shed overnight, and your mission becomes I gotta break into the house and heal up my arm because it's a mess. And there is one sympathetic dude that uh, ends up being your sort of in your way to get in there, but he can only help you so much, so you have to
Yeah, I
sneak in.
actually found it amusing that like a lot of your options were like, belt your eyes at them like sympathetically.
Hmm.
you know,
I don't even think I tried that one. Did you try that?
yeah, it's basically as far as now they're acknowledging the fact that yes, you are actually female and a girl instead of
Hmm.
what some people seem to be claiming they want within games. No, it's that Clementine's a little girl. I want like the particular like social interactions that a little girl would have or a female
Yeah.
would in comparison with a male. I don't want men and women to be the same. I want the unique individual aspects of them to come through and be able to experience those.
Right. It sort of ignores those PC trappings. I mean, like I said, that's what I love about the game. It doesn't feel PC. It doesn't feel like it's giving you a story that's tailored to your sensibilities. It's just rooted in the reality that it represents, and it doesn't hold back on that
Oh
in any
yeah, I
way.
thought it was pretty good because I mean, as soon as I saw the dog, it's like, oh crap, the dog's gonna die. But
Yeah,
it did sort of threw me for a loop when the dog just like so quickly just attacks you.
yeah, yeah. It's this moment where it's like Resident Evil 4 or something, where you think you're gonna save this dog and it's gonna be your buddy for life or whatever, but in a realistic fashion, it attacks you and you end up having to kill it. And yeah, it really sort of sets the tone. You're gonna have to kill dogs that just are wild and don't care if you're helping them because they're a wild animal and they don't understand and they just know survival.
Yeah, well, I don't know how some other people feel, but like I used to own a dog, but I've never been a super dog lover. I can't even fathom how some of my friends who are like dog lovers would feel about that because
Hmm.
let's face it, we have these pets, we have all these like creatures we live with, but if things get really dire and down to it, you know, chances are your nice little friendly doggy will try to eat you.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it's like the documentary Grizzly Man or something. Like people sort of playing with fire in that way. We love animals and they're all cuddly or whatever, but yeah, I mean they're animals and they have these instincts, and no, even domesticated ones, deep down somewhere in there, they have this instinct, and if it comes down to it, then yeah, that's what you're looking at is the reality situation, especially in this game where it is kind of all about survival. That dog probably would try and eat you.
Yeah, I
Um,
also like that for the most part. People go, it's like, yeah, whatever to everything you have to say. Because let's face it, you're like 12.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. That's the way I approached the conversation trees. Is that I I have this underlying assumption that they figure whatever I'm telling them is bullcrap, and I just try to be as factual and sort of no nonsense as I can. I always choose those options because that's the way it tends to be. Those characters don't want to let you into their house. They assume you've gotten a zombie bite because they're looking out for themselves. And
Yeah, I stated I'm not bit as soon as they came in. Still not bit.
right, yeah, I think I chose that one too. Yep. Yeah, it's just very firm, very holding your ground. Yeah.
Well, actually, it was more so like throw it in their face. Also, I'm
Hmm.
still not bit. You stupid assholes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But on the other hand, it's like on the other hand, I don't blame them because they're being smart. They're looking out for themselves, and
Well, yeah,
you you can take that too far, of course. Which is one of the other sort of themes of the game of the way this sort of living in this reality can kind of corrupt your sense of trust and stuff like that, and trying to hold on to that integrity, that like little bit of humanity that you have left inside you, if there is any.
well, there's a major question. This is what a lot of survival stories are about. Is that are we like civilized just because of our creature comforts?
Hmm.
And like if you just take them away, will we become violent, sociopathic assholes? Like apparently all the bandits in The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm. Right. And yeah, I tend to believe that most people would be, pretty awful. Um, and it makes sense that,
Not a lot of people
in
would be Joel though.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, everyone's an individual basically, and different people have different reactions to situations. And but when things get really dire as they are in these post-apocalyptic environments, you have to imagine that people's psychology are fundamentally going to be skewed toward a more sort of self preservation sort of
Yeah.
aspect.
Well, I'm just saying with it is that I think this is the best done like recent like post-apocalyptic scenario because people seem like actual like people.
Mm-hmm.
dealing with these kinds of situations, and there are those like moments of horrendous brutality.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a good point. Um, yeah, you mentioned Last of Us. I mean, you have to have a villain, I guess, is what it comes down to. And so, yeah, the all of the humans that you fight in The Last of Us are kind of just the worst kind of people. But yeah, I would agree that there's probably a more nuanced cast of characters in this game compared to The Last of Us, and that's probably more to do with the fact that it's more sort of character driven, and there's a wider cast of characters that you come across and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I personally feel like they're both doing it really well. It's in terms of storytelling in games, we've really come a long way in the past few years. It feels like with games like
Yeah,
this.
I have a feeling that what it seems like they're going with season 2 of The Walking Dead is that it's going to be about trying to get into an actual like community and how it will inevitably horribly fall apart.
Right. Well, my understanding is with what I know about the comics is that uh, there's never any like picking up the pieces. Society is doomed. The zombie thing only spreads further and further, and it's all just pockets of people trying to survive until basically the human race is destroyed. So it's very bleak. Is my understanding.
Yeah, well, going into that, actually, like that was kind of the opposite scenario. Was kind of my one of those zombie game ideas I wanted to do, which is basically that you would be the person who like clears out an area or like takes back a town for the people that used to live in there before they got before they got moved out by the zombie apocalypse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, uh,
But even
so
even going
being like the quarantiner peoples being like the quarantine characters. Is that what you're saying?
no, more so like almost being like a mercenary, but
Mm.
instead of for instead of just for instead of just for like killing people and whatnot, it's that people would like want things back or maybe like food instead of like being a hired gun for all these varying people around the wastelands.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. Yeah, that could work in a video game situation pretty well. Yeah,
Yeah,
you'd basically have pick up different missions from different characters and stuff in an RPG sort of fashion.
yeah.
But yeah, so I enjoyed the first episode of season 2 so far, and looking forward to the rest of it.
Okay. Well, we're about to an hour, so I think that was a good amount
Yeah.
then.